What's going on, everyone? Matic here, and welcome to our On the Road to Baki series update number 12. So first thing we got is techniques. For techniques, what we've been doing for this segment is stepping forward with a nice 1-2 punch, just rolling right into it and going down the floor and mostly just hitting air. Really trying to get down the technique before we move on to other stuff. One of the things I've also done is doing the stepping punch while hitting resistance. So I've gone from the lighter heavy bag that I have to the much heavier heavy bag. I kind of bounce back and forth a little bit to work on different levels of resistance when I actually hit the bag. For kicks, as you can see, we have gone from, instead of getting into the position of the punch and then moving into whatever the kick happens to be, what I'm now doing is slowly reaching out, extending my punch, and then when I make contact with the bag, I'm using that as a trigger to then go into the kick. This is simply to simulate that when you go towards an opponent, their most likely reaction is to beat a back up, and this is simply me following with a continuing technique with that. But because of the nature of the bag, it does not move. I'm having to pull back feet and stuff like that to compensate for that closer distance. But also while doing that, I've been making sure that I've been kicking at different levels. Body, mostly just, again, make sure I got the mechanics down, make it nice and smooth and stuff like that, but also going to the head because I can. So next thing is exercises. For exercises, so back in the previous update, I showed that I basically got my newfangled Tru-Grit treadmill. It's been doing really awesome. The resistance levels are really good. The highest resistance level isn't like outrageously hard or anything, but it is definitely enough to notice a difference with compared to normal walking or anything like that, and can be used for good things. Whether it says sled pushes, but for mine it's not quite that strong. The newer model is supposed to have a higher resistance, less levels, but it's not like it's a click definite progression of resistance. It's actually like very gradual. So mine has 6 resistances and mine's stuck at like a 3.7 I have it at, and that's actually good resistance. I can obviously walk at a fairly decent speed consistently between 3 to 3.5 miles an hour with the same level of resistance that I would have if I was just walking normal. I haven't quite gotten to running yet because I'm still not quite light enough to where my body could handle it. Can I run? Yes, I actually have good enough running technique to run a okay distance and or time, but then my body punishes me by then taking like 3 to 5 days to recover. So walking is my thing for now. I will be adding something a little bit later to the update, but that's where I'm at right now. Another thing about the Tru-Grit runner, the display that it has tells you all kinds of things, right? Speed, distance, time, calories, stuff like that. The time only goes from a 0 to 100, and then it restarts. So it won't just continue like swap over to hours and minutes. It only clocks minutes and seconds, and it'll just automatically revert from 100 to 0. For total miles, I haven't quite seen how high that gets. I can probably only assume 100 as well before it restarts. But as for distance in, like, say that session that you do, like whether you do 1-2 miles or whatever, 1.5, it will only go up to 10. And then that restarts. So it doesn't go up to 2, strangely enough. I don't understand why, it just doesn't. So, and it's a little bit different than time. It will not go from a 10 back to 0. It will go to 10 and then nothing happens. So you actually have to reset the machine for it to go back to 0 for it to then start counting your distance again. But having said that, I'm still going to do the same things I've mostly been doing with the Tru-Grit runner as my primary cardio driver while throwing something else in. For the lifting portion, as you can kind of see here, I am doing deadlifts. Yes, I know I'm doing sumo deadlifts. There is technically a reason for that, blah, 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 whatever. I'm now kind of up to the weight that if you take into all of the weight that I am picking up, including myself, I'm somewhere around the same strength level, the highest strength level that I was when I was back in high school, when I had weighed 143 pounds and I was deadlifting I consistently 285. I did at one point pull like 310 to 315 or something, but I was able to consistently pull, at least for a couple of reps, double what my weight was back then. Here I am consistently pulling at least 5 to 6 reps for multiple sets. So we are getting higher and better and stuff like that in regards to that. For shoulder presses, it's just a basic kettlebell shoulder press and nothing really too special about that. When I do these, I'm kind of working on something very specific outside of just like basic pressing ability. It's something a little bit different that actually is connected to martial arts. And then as you'll see in some of the clips or whatever that I have of me doing sword stuff, I'm still going to keep doing sword stuff. I'm really liking it. I've now gotten to the point where my grip isn't nearly as fatigued doing these particular exercises, so I can wind up doing more type things or a little bit of changes on what I'm going to do. And one of the things in the previous video before this, my Reacts Rants videos about a Nagashi movement, and that's essentially when you step over to get out of the way of an attack and then do a counter type move. As you can see, I am doing that with sword stuff or whatever, but I haven't quite really been worrying about recovering after that, or maybe trying to chain the moves together, like just go back and forth, mostly because I'm just working on getting each individual side working pretty well. Because mostly what people don't realize is going towards the front leg, right, and then pivoting this way, it's pretty easy to get, whether it's a diagonal or a vertical cut or what have you. It's fairly easy, especially compared to if you go towards the backside forward and then cut because we're doing this deflection or parrying or whatever it winds up being, it makes the cut harder to be in proper line, whichever one it's trying to be, when we go towards the back side. The front side's pretty easy because everything is kind of going straight into the turn of wherever your pivot just happens to be. The other side is a little bit kind of janky, especially when you're using the old lefty. So that's kind of it for the previous parts of the video, but now we're going to go on to what we're going to do for the next update in regards to techniques. So what we're going to do is, in regards to the 1-2 punch, I'm going to have to figure out, because when you hit things, right, especially with bags, most of the influence you're going to put into the bag is, especially if you're doing the techniques to actually do damage, is going to be on that first contact. So almost regardless of whichever of the bags I use, the slightly lighter heavy bag or my heavy bag, that first punch is still going to move the bag or the target to where my second punch is no longer just a basic 1-2, where I would have to do a 1 and then an additional push to throw a 2, and I kind of don't want that. So I'm going to have to experiment to see on the lighter heavy bag to where my first punch just goes slightly off center, as close as possible, right? And then my second punch goes out to check to see that when I am putting down that front foot, I'm in a correct position to throw the second hand with the proper structure and stuff that I want. But to still make sure that the first punch has adequate power, I will still continue to do the stepping version, boom, on the heavier bag with the first punch. I'll probably kind of throw in a little, or at least a movement of the second hand. That way both sides get some work, but that'll kind of be for that. Next up is the kicking parts. For the kicking parts, I'm trying to debate on whether or not I still want to use my fist, my full extension of the punch, to be my trigger on when to do the kick. I'm not quite sure if after the kick I want to work on just getting back into a recovery position or getting my feet down and stuff, and then just throwing any kind of counter or additional attack after that. I might play with both, I might do both, or I might figure something else out. Next up is exercises. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reintroduce kettlebell swings into my routine, even though I kind of took them out for this past 2 months, but there's reasons for that. But I'm going to reintroduce them simply so that I can have a more intense, short version of cardio. It's called HIIT, H-I-I-T. But I'm going to introduce that, one, because it helps simulate martial arts stuff more accurately, right? Bouts of rest with small amounts of time of high exertion exertion activity. One of the things I'll probably wind up doing, probably not in this segment, I'll probably wind up getting the piece of equipment, a trap bar, as I mentioned in a previous update. Getting a trap bar either in the next month or month and a half at the earliest. And by doing that, that'll actually help me get away from doing the sumo version of a deadlift, and I can get back closer to doing a conventional deadlift type stance versus what I'm doing now. Another update, this for be a video in the May, June-ish time frame. I haven't quite figured out when I'm going to do it. We have now, I've let this stay the way it is for a few weeks to make sure that's actually what we got. We have now hit 100 subscribers. Yay. So in celebration of that, this is one of the milestones that I wanted to do. And for these milestones, I will actually be demonstrating and showing the curriculum for my style Wado-Ryu Karate, divided up by belt level. And the first belt level will be what to do to get your white belt. The way that we do it is you start class, you have no skills, therefore no belt. And you have to test to get your white belt. So I'll be going over the material required to do that. It'll be a slight modified version because of reasons I'll explain in that video itself, but that's what the milestones will be. It will be to actually see what the curriculum is for my style up to and slightly including black belt. So if you want to see those types of things, continue watching. I'm Matic, and I'll catch y'all later.